Good evening, and welcome to the League of Women Voters Candidate Forum for the April 2nd election. In this forum, the council members for District 1 will be interviewed. My name is Gloria Kubishak, and I represent the League of Women Voters as your moderator tonight. We are pleased to bring you this live broadcast on Wisconsin Rapids Community Media, and our viewing audience can call in questions at 423-0441. The League thanks the candidates for being willing to run for public office. We would remind you that the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization and does not support or endorse any candidate or political party. The candidates for Wisconsin Rapids City Council District 1 are Joe Zurfluh and Keith Hetzel. As well as answer questions. Written questions from our studio audience and telephoned questions from our viewing audience should be directed to the office and not to a particular candidate. Questions will also be screened for duplication. A reminder to our viewing audience, you can call in your questions at 423-0441. We will now begin with opening statements. Joe Zurfluh.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum, everyone for being here and watching at home. My name is Joe Zurfluh. I've been on City Council for 3 years now. It's been a very interesting 3 years. I'm from Port Edwards locally. Grew up there my whole life. After high school, went in the Army for 3 years, deployed to Kosovo and Iraq. After that, I went to school for criminal justice. I earned an associate's and a bachelor's degree. I've been with the Wood County Sheriff's Department now for 15 years. The reason why I'm running for re-election, and my candidate here running too, is because of several obviously hot issues that we care very passionate about. Currently, some of the major issues facing City Council is aquatics. I'm sure everyone has read that in the paper. Raising money for that is currently still ongoing. We're very hopeful that we will accomplish that goal. And really, who knows what comes up throughout a year, right? So a lot of times we're caught by surprise, and it's easy to Monday morning quarterback some things sometimes. But the one thing that I think I bring is conviction. You hear often from people who are not satisfied with decisions you make, certainly a lot more than you hear from people who are happy with the decisions you make. And making the tough decisions, even when you know that they are extremely unpopular sometimes, can be difficult. So that's what I think I bring to council, is a level head and, you know, sticking by my decisions that I make. So thank you.
Thank you, Joe Zurfluh. Keith Hetzel.
Thank you. My name is Keith Hetzel. I'm a resident of Wisconsin Rapids. I was born and raised here. I've been back here 6 years now, and next month. I currently teach at St. Vincent de Paul Assumption Catholic Schools in the music area. I'm running because of the fact that I think we need to get more people involved. Even if I don't win, it makes no difference. I have no qualms against my opponent here. He's a fantastic guy, but I think we need to get people out and about, and we need to say, you need to get in here. We need to get fresh ideas. We need to get new faces. We need to get people involved. Yeah, the aquatic center is a big thing. There are other things that are big issues that are in this community, and I would like to try to get my thoughts and my feelings and my work put toward those projects, that we can see those through to fruition and that we can move the city forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. We'll go to you, Joe, for the very first question, and in fact, aquatics happens to be that question. What is the present status of the public swimming pool, or the aquatic center as it's called, for all of our youngsters?
The council approved last night, in fact, bid letting for the project. We are, there was a $2.5 million grant. One of the stipulations was that the entire project move forward and basically be let for bid. We are currently $4.5 million short, and that's what the fundraising right now is targeting, is coming up with that $4.5 million. But obviously, when the bids come back in budget, then the council will take the next steps on the project. So everyone knows, of course, Whitterfield is the destination for this. It is a good central location in the city. I guess one thing I just will say about aquatics, and not to steal the thunder from one of the former city council members last night, but he did point out the fact that we might not like the situation that we're in without the pool right now, but it's the situation we find ourselves in. So something has to be done about it. I don't think we can do nothing when it comes to aquatics. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Keith Hetzel.
This is kind of a hot button with me. I have some great nephews that would really like to be able to use the pool. We don't have that opportunity right now. As council, I would have thought that, knowing several years ago that this pool needed to be replaced, the West Side pool, that monies would have been started to put aside so that we would have those funds available. My great nephews are not asking for a lazy river. They're not asking for a lot of these other things. They want a pool. They would like a slide. That's really about it. They want some place to go. It's wonderful to have all these other things, and we keep hearing that, gee, if we build this huge aquatic center, people are going to come in here. If that were the case, the Dells should be the largest community in the state of Wisconsin, and we know that it is not. But we need to make sure that we are doing everything we can for the youth so that they have some place to go, rather than just hang out wherever.
Thank you, Keith. Keith, we're going to start with you on the next question, and that is, if you are elected, what are you going to do about cleaning down trees, plowing the snow on side streets, and mowing grass in public places?
It's a good question. I would want to make sure that, of course, all of the, as they are right now, the main thoroughfares are cleaned out. I understand that there is a 3-inch rule for snow, that if it's not exceeded that, they don't plow. That's understandable. This time of year, it's gotten pretty rough. I would want to make sure that, when it is getting better like this, that, yeah, we are getting out there. We are taking care of these things. The downed trees, we need to make sure that our forestry and parks are taking care of those when they have time. Again, with all the snow that we've had this winter, we just can't really seem to get out there. But we do need to, if we are going to keep the city beautiful, and we are going to make it beautiful, we need to keep it that way, and we need to make sure that we have everybody there. Mowing lawns as well. Let's get out there and let's get this stuff taken care of. I take a look at other communities. I see, well manicured boulevards and everything, and then I see some things here that really could use some improvement. I think we need to focus on our monies in those areas.
Thank you, Keith Hetzel. Joe Zurfluh.
Well, I think as far as mowing grass, I think everyone knows the area that's extremely noticeable is across from the hospital along the expressway. That was a decision made by city staff, by the street department. As far as plowing snow, this winter was terrible with snowfall. It was good for the snowmobilers, but not so good for city staff that are often called in the middle of the night. They don't know if they're going to have to come in necessarily or not. They don't have any type of regular hours whatsoever. I know recently the decision had been made not to plow except for the main arterial roads, basically. That was not a decision that alderpersons make, but of course we do hear about the issue and residents' concern. I did receive 2 phone calls about that issue. What I can tell you is the street department is going to weigh the need and the service to the city versus the budget, right? And I think people are equally concerned about those things, depending who you ask. They're going to put one over the other, but you're never going to get the person who's going to be perfectly happy with, running the budget completely out to keep the roads plowed, the side streets. As far as down trees, I guess I'm a little confused. The city, of course, takes care of down trees anytime it's in the city's right-of-way, or, of course, blocking a road. Anything on private property, though, the city would not be removing. That would be up to that private landowner. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zurfluh. For our viewing audience, we remind you that you can call in questions at 423-0441. We are in the midst of our candidate forum for District 1 City Council Alderman. We will go to you, Joe, with this next question. What is the bidding process for city projects, and do you think it could be improved?
It probably could be. Right now, before any bid is let, it needs to be approved by Finance and Property, and then full council, subsequent to the full council meeting. Currently, we meet, except for one of our committees, we meet on the first Tuesday of the month. Full council is the third Tuesday of the month. I've chaired Property and Finance now for 2 years. It certainly seems to be the committee that gets a lot of attention just by the nature of what we handle. I guess I don't know that there's a problem with how we currently let bids so much as I think I have heard some council members kind of state that they haven't found the information out at an adequate time ahead of when we're actually going to make these decisions. And some of that might be true, but I think city staff right now is doing a pretty good job getting these bids let and bringing it to council. We have at least 72 hours to review paperwork, and that's not always a lot of time if you haven't been paying attention, I guess. But I think it's kind of incumbent upon the person in the office to do the homework ahead of time rather than maybe passing blame.
Thank you, Joe Zurfluh. Keith Hetzel.
As far as the bidding process goes, I think what we've got in place right now is really very good. It goes before a committee. The committee screens everything. They send their recommendations on to the council. Is there something that could be better? Possibly, but I'd like to see examples first before I would say, let's change this and let's change that. There are so many examples out there of good movement and things through the bidding process. I think that we get the people in there to do the bidding. We make sure that they are qualified for whatever. But yes, let's take it to that first committee. Let's let them really hash things out. Then let's take their recommendation. City council can say yay or nay. And if they don't like it, then it comes back to committee. And I think that's probably the best way to do it at this point because we have that check and balance there.
Thank you, Keith Hetzel. Next question, we start with you, Keith. As a taxpayer and homeowner, I feel like I'm paying lots more in taxes, but receiving a lot less from the city for my money. If you're elected, what are you going to do about that issue?
As a homeowner here now, just purchased the home that I grew up in back in December. Yeah, I feel that there's taxes pretty high as well. My feeling is that if we take a look at the budgets, in 2016, the budget was 38 million. 2017, 48 million. 2018, 56 million. And again, for this fiscal year, $56 million. With that kind of money, there's got to be money that we can use so that we can get the projects done that we need. We also need to be drawing in businesses that are going to pay living wages. Metalco is coming in. That's fantastic. But what we need to do is we need to do more with the tax dollars that we are given so that we can improve our infrastructure. It is my understanding that the city would need approximately $40 million just to bring the infrastructure of this community up to standard where it needs to be. Why did Metalco come into where they did? Because that area was certified. It was all taken care of. But if we're going to be looking at the west side industrial park, thank you, or the east side industrial park, and we're going to look at downtown areas, are we going to be able to supply the needs for these companies? If we're going to draw companies in, we've got to make sure that this stuff is taken care of. Do I want to see my taxes go down? Of course, everybody wants to see their taxes go down, but we don't right now have the tax base, so somebody is going to have to pick it up. That's why I think the city council really needs to, push the envelope and make sure that we are taking care of the taxes dollars that we have and be good stewards of that money.
Thank you, Keith Hetzel. Joe Zurfluh. Do you need me to repeat this?
No, ma'am. I guess I don't agree that there's less city services. The cost of everything is increasing. That's part of the reason why there might be that perception. I agree with Keith. Infrastructure is absolutely aging. Right now, we're replacing roads at 1 mile a year. Well, do the math. There's how many miles in the city? What's the long-term solution to that? I don't know, but we do have levy limits imposed upon us and stuff. Taxes can only, go so high, and the dollar itself isn't stretching as far as it used to. When it comes to emergency services, other public services, street department again, for example, like the previous question kind of addressed, I don't think there's any less services there. There are a few open positions right now that we're trying to fill. But basically, just trying to be responsible and, trusting the city staff that heads these departments to get the job done. Joe Terry is the Director of Public Works. He obviously is in charge of any roads, infrastructure. I don't know, I guess, what the ultimate long-term vision that he would have, but not having any experience, obviously, in engineering, I do rely on his advice, and I think it's been sound in the past.
Thank you, Joe Zurfluh. Joe, we're going to begin with you on this question. What do you believe is the most important priority in the city's 5 or 10-year plan?
Aquatics. 3 years ago, not specifically aquatics, but more activities for youth especially. 3 years ago, one of the hot button topics, it was brought up here at this forum. It was brought up by the City Times when they interviewed the candidates, was basically the drug problem in the city. And an article in the paper that, Wisconsin Rapids is a central Wisconsin drug hub. You can't just arrest your way out of the problem. We all know that. Certainly, increased enforcement that focuses on narcotics enforcement is a step, and it's necessary. But when kids are idle, they're going to find something to do. The Aquatic Center, for example, is not just for children. It's a place to take your families. And, systematically, you have to start young, give people something to do, make the city a vibrant place where families want to come in. And maybe the people that are a little less savory, they're not going to want to, hang around an area that's nice, that has a lot of activities, where there's a lot of people around.
Thank you, Joe. Keith Hetzel.
I think one of the things in the next 5 to 10 years is we need to make sure that we have living wage jobs that are coming in here. As we just found out recently, Shopko is closing. If we don't have jobs here that are going to pay living wages, they're not going to support local businesses that are going to provide clothing, other materials that we need to have around here. We need to get those jobs in here. The east side, the area for the industrial area, was certified back in 2013, 2014. We finally have somebody coming in here 5, 6 years later. Why aren't we doing more to try to create those areas so that we can get people in here, get companies in here so that we'll take care of these things? Why aren't we looking at certifying more areas in the city? Those things are going to bring people in here. They're going to bring jobs. They're going to bring people. And they're going to bring their families. And yeah, we still need those activities for our youth. We need them for our families. But we can have all the activities you want for your kids. But if there's no jobs here, are the parents going to stay here? We're already seeing a decline. We see the decline in the schools. So we know that either A, they're not having as many children, I shouldn't say enough, but not having as many children, or B, they are moving into areas whereby there are jobs and there are the activities for the kids, but jobs come first.
Thank you, Keith Hetzel. We'll go to you, Keith, on this question. How would you involve the community in decisions and ensure their voices are heard?
As District 1 alderperson, I would want to make sure that I have quarterly public forums with the people in District 1 so that I'm standing before them, I'm saying, gee, what is it that what are your main concerns? What are the things that you want to see happen? How are we going to make this happen? How can I count on you as well as you count on me to make these things happen? That dialogue has to be going on a regular basis with all council members and even the mayor. We can't just say, gee, we're on the council. As I say, my opponent is very involved in the community, and God bless him for that. But that's one thing that I would want to make sure that I do, is that I'm talking to the constituents that I would have in District 1 and say, okay, great, where are we headed at this? Previous council member for District 1 used to have a cleanup in the spring. I've had several people say, gee, we need that again. They want this. They want to get back into these things. So as council member, I would want to make sure that I'm really listening to what they have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith Hetzel. Joe Zurfluh.
Well, of course, communication is important, but when you're an elected official, there's one or two ways you can approach it, and sometimes it changes depending upon the issue. You can either represent basically what the majority of the persons, tell you they want, assuming they contact you, or you can act as almost like a delegate, where you make what you believe are the best decisions. It's really hard to gauge, I guess, what the majority of your residents feel, because, like I said, you often don't feel compelled to call someone to give them a pat on the back. Generally, it's because you're passionate about either an issue coming up or one that's passed, and you really want to see it go one way, or it went one way that you don't agree with. Quarterly meetings are actually a good idea. That's not something that I've had. That's a very good idea, Keith. And I thank you for the kind words, but let's not downplay your involvement, obviously, in the community either. But that's really how you have to approach it. Sometimes there's an issue where you can see both sides, and I think it's perfectly, responsible to listen to the residents that contact you when you make a decision on that. It's not a perfect science by any stretch of the imagination. I think any elected official would just tell you that they do the best they can and they do what they believe is right. One good thing that we have, being nonpartisan, is that we don't have any sort of party lines that we have to abide by. We can actually just make what we believe is a common sense decision.
Thank you, Joe Zurfluh. Next question to you. What are the most daunting budget challenges of the city?
Well, how are we going to pay for the pool, right? This is the third or fourth time it's come up. It is extremely daunting. The finance and property meeting on the 14th that we had, it was an absolutely agonizing decision for me. I'm not gonna hide that fact. On the one hand, you have an activity, a place that you're trying to develop, and it will be somewhat of a year-round facility with ice skating and hockey and whatnot. But on the other hand, you have to finance it. And, now we're kind of in a position where if we want it open by 2020, we have to put these bids out. So how are we going to pay for that? We're kind of relying on city staff for that particular project to try to come up with the fundraising money. And of course, elected officials are going to be a part of this process. Otherwise, it comes back also to infrastructure. How are you going to finance fixing the roads? Completely redoing the roads. A mile a year is not going to cut it. It's not going to take us very far. So we're going to have to get creative with how we're going to pay for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Keith Hetzel.
Could I ask you to repeat?
Oh, certainly. What are the most daunting budget challenges of the city?
I think some of the most daunting are going to be just wages. We take a look at any company, the number one cost is going to be wages. We want to make sure that we are making our employees, our city workers, that they have a decent living, that they have decent benefits. Benefits are a big thing, let's face it. We also need to take a look at some of those other activities that are going on. The Aquatic Center is going to be a great thing. I wonder how much thought has been given, however, into the maintenance once this is up. How much, are you going to have for chemicals? How many employees do you have to have? You're going to have a snack bar, you're going to need a manager, you're going to need people there. The size of the facility, you're going to have additional lifeguards. I have talked with my niece who works with the pool centers in Wausau, and she says there are a lot of activities, and they have a very hard time in Wausau getting lifeguards. We want to make sure that we have all of these things in place, but we have to look forward to what are the challenges and how are we going to meet these, rather than just say, well, gee, we're going to do this and then we're going to let the chips fall where they may. We have to plan ahead. We have to make sure that by planning ahead, we're setting aside monies so that maintenance can be taken care of, rising costs can be taken care of, and it's not going to impact on our budget.
Thank you, Keith Hetzel. Next question. The city is going to a completely new garbage collection, and leaf pickup has therefore become an issue of the past. Can you explain, or do you have an opinion on this?
As far as the garbage collection, I know that the city is going to be getting the containers like they have for the recycling. I'm not 100% sure about the leaf pickup. I've often wondered why the city of Wisconsin Rapids doesn't have what you want to call a giant vacuum or something like that, where people will rake their leaves out to the road, and then, you know, the city will come by and pick those up, clean those up, and take those out for composting. To put all of those leaves just into your garbage like that, it's going to fill up the landfill a little bit quicker, and we're wasting a lot of precious resources as far as recycling. We need to have those materials as well. I drive past the compost center on the way out to my brother-in-law's farm, and, you know, there's a huge pile in the spring, and about 3 weeks later, it's practically down to nothing. We need to make sure that we're using these things. We need to make sure that, yeah, we're not having, you know, metal cans or plastic cans or whatever going all over the place, because they're, let's face it, some people really pack those things full. I try not to, but they pack them full, and then all of a sudden you're getting garbage all over the street because there's loose stuff all over. I think going to that container system will be really good. As far as the leaves, I'd need to look more into that.
Thank you, Keith Hetzel. Joe Zurfluh.
Would you mind rereading the question, please?
The city will be adopting a new garbage collection system. Leaf pickup is possibly going to become a thing of the past. What is your opinion on this?
The solid waste ordinance was passed last month. There is a referral to bring it back. There are issues to address. Business owners we're a little upset because the city will no longer pick up garbage from businesses, the way the ordinance is written now. The cans, they're 96 gallons, so it's the same as the 3 32-gallon cans that you're allowed right now. So I don't think there's going to be any issues as far as like the quantity. You actually can buy an extra one, so you could have 2 96-gallon cans. As far as the leaf pickup, I can't call the thing anything else than a giant vacuum either. But you know, the town I grew up in, they had this where you would rake it, and every other Tuesday or whatever it was, they would come around and they'd suck up the leaves, and then on another day they'd take care of the brush and everything with a chipper. And you know, the struggle with that is how large the city is. Currently, the way it was last year, you could call and you could be put on a list for leaf and brush pickup. You know, there's a cost associated either with buying a machine or renting one. I guess my thoughts on that, for me personally, it's not an issue going to the compost site, especially in the first district. It's right there. Elderly people, though, people who maybe aren't as mobile, I could see them having issues, and I could see the validity of having leaf pickup. I would like to see it still on a list rather than just kind of driving around every street. I don't think that's just practical.
Thank you. This is our last question, and then we'll go into concluding remarks. Joe Zurfluh, what impact has state budgeting had on our city?
Well, limits what we can do tax-wise. Not to say that we should raise taxes. Of course, that's extremely unpopular. I remember a few years ago, the property taxes were reevaluated. All the properties were completely reassessed, and your tax rate went down, but in my case and a lot of people's case, your value went up. So it didn't really cancel out at all. In fact, I'm paying maybe just shy of $100 more property taxes than I was probably 3 or 4 years ago. The past state budgets haven't, I guess, affected us far as services-wise, public safety, things like that, but infrastructure-wise, I think that's where we're hurting the worst, hence the mile a year plan that I've already referenced 2 or 3 times tonight.
Thank you, Joe. Keith Hetzel.
I think the state budget has, as Joe has stated, been not that great of an impact. It hasn't really impacted us that greatly on certain things. I realize that, you have to pay bills when it comes down to it, and the state has to pay their bills, the city has to pay theirs, the county has to pay theirs, I have to pay mine. I am pleased to see that President Governor is including $3 million to get the Tribune building off the ground, I should say, excuse me, and hopefully we can get that building up and running, and that's going to help bring in more people, bring in more jobs. Can we expect the state to cover all of our expenses? No. But usually what happens is that when the state drops their taxes, in order to meet the same services that we were talking about before, the cities and municipalities must raise their taxes in order to provide the same level of service, not an increase, but the same level of service that people are used to. So where did we come from? There's only so much money in the kitty jar, and we have to make sure that we're doing more with what we have. As a teacher of many years, budgets were being cut continually. You have to do more with less. I don't like it. The parents don't like it. The students don't like it. I'm sure the city council doesn't like it or anything else. But we do have to take a look at what's available and how we can best utilize those resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith Hetzel. We'll go to concluding remarks and start with you, Keith.
I want to thank the League of Women Voters for having me here this evening. This is a great honor to be able to be here. I want to be able to represent District 1 very well. District 1 is a very large area because we do have the industrial park, the West Side Industrial Park in there. So it looks like everybody's down at the south end, but there's still people up north of the industrial park. I want to make sure that I'm out there and helping everybody else. That's my goal. I was raised to make sure that, you take care of other people first, and then you take care of yourself. My grandfather, who was a former city employee when he was alive, had a great love for this city. I never really knew him personally. He passed away when I was 2 years old, but I had my grandmother who instilled the same kind of work ethic in me that he had. My parents instilled work ethic in me, and I want to make sure that I'm taking that work ethic and bringing it to the people of District 1 and to the city of Wisconsin Rapids because of the fact that this is a fine city. But I do think that we can do better than where we're at right now if we just take the time and we look at things and we say, what are our priorities? We need to have these priorities, and then we also have to look beyond just what we need for next week or next month or next year. We need to look 5, 10, 20 years down the road. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith Hetzel. Joe Zurfluh.
Thank you, ma'am. I also would like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. It doesn't really sound like Keith and I are that far off, really, on principle. Currently, the past 3 years have been a really wild ride. A lot of ups and downs. There's very few things that I've had that I felt like I wanted back. You just approach every issue, I guess, based on the issue. The council right now, I think, is in good shape. There's a great variety of the council, not 100% or close to that. Everyone's kind of on the same page, which is a good thing because you need different ideas, you need different opinions. That's how we how we move forward. A long vision plan certainly is how you should try to operate. You know, you think 2 moves down the road, you know, how is this going to affect the tax base? How is this going to affect the residents? It is difficult sometimes deciding on maybe cutting back on services as opposed to still paying for them. But if I'm reelected as alderman, I'm just going to keep doing what I have been doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you both, Keith Hetzel and Joe Zurfluh, for being willing to run for public office. Both Joe and Keith are running for City Council District 1. This concludes the first part of our program this evening. To our viewing audience, please stay tuned. In several minutes, we will move to the debate between the school board candidates. Thank you again, Mr. Zurfluh and Mr. Hetzel. Remember to vote on April 2nd.